Yo, what's up?
What's going on, Mason? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Adam?
I am doing well. It's a beautiful Tuesday evening. We're recording a podcast. We're drinking. I don't think it gets any better than that. Mason,
True.
what are you sipping on tonight?
Yeah, I've got a classic gin martini in here. So a little bit of vermouth. I've got Empress gin, which gives it that cool color, and lemon twist in there.
Nice. It kind of looks like maybe it's a half glass full situation, but
Yeah,
do you have a little sidecar there, just
I
in
do
case?
not. I should have had one,
You
but
should have had a sidecar.
you should have. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking some Sancerre tonight.
Ooh.
Um, It's 2021 Sancerre. I'm not even going to try and say that, producer. It's okay. It's got a little like oxidation to it.
Okay.
I don't know. It's okay. Not my favorite, but it's cold. It's refreshing, and it kind of ties. Both of our drinks kind of tie into our podcast tonight.
Yes, I do.
But before we get into the podcast, we have
Oh,
a message, of course, from our sponsor. We can't forget our sponsor today.
oh, thank you.
So today's podcast is all about proper service, and that is what you get at Shoes Pizzeria. Shoes Pizza always has top-notch service, from the friendly face that greets you at the counter, the owner and the managers who are always there to help, and all the kitchen staff who, bring your food to you with a smile on their face. And good service is great, but the product that you are being served is also important too, because I think we've both been to a good restaurant and the food isn't good. I mean, yeah, you talk about the great service, but you also need great food. And
Absolutely.
their food's top notch. Pizza, wings, subs. It sounds easy, but Shoes Pizza actually delivers via DoorDash. Go visit them at 3300 North Calumet Avenue in Valparaiso, Indiana. Give them a call at 219-476-7463 to place your order. And if you see the owner there, shout out Chris. Tell him that Mason and Adam sent you. Maybe he'll give you a little discount. I
Who
can't
knows?
guarantee that, but you could just tell him that we sent you, and it'll go far. Maybe we'll get some more, a bigger sponsorship. Yeah, who knows? But yeah, go check them out. Shoes Pizzeria, Valparaiso, Indiana. And now, Mason, we're on to episode 59. So we're almost to
Woo!
episode 60,
Oh my
and
goodness.
which is crazy because we started this journey at episode technically 23, but as co-host 24 was our first podcast as co-host. So we've
Wild.
we've done way over half of the Assemblage was the wine podcast, now the beverage podcast together, which is great. And today we're talking about service. So podcast B.S.S, which is
What?
bar som service, or bar
Whoa.
sommelier service, if you want to go that far.
Ooh, you want to be
Um,
technical.
yeah, we're all about the acronyms here at Assemblage on episode 59. So we're going to kind of dive
uh,
into, what is proper service to us. I was listening to an episode of the Guild Somm podcast.
love them.
They're great. And they were talking about like how wine service has evolved, and it kind of inspired this podcast. So, we kind of want to talk about proper wine service, proper bar service, and just kind of get into what we think is proper service. Again, we're probably going to miss some stuff. Our
Absolutely.
proper service is different to everyone. Everyone kind of expects different things when they go out. But these are kind of our standards that we like to see met, which some might sound easy, but the execution isn't always easy to achieve.
Very true.
So I want to kind of jump into wine service. Mason will jump into cocktail service a little bit later, but wine service. So to me, the most important thing, when a somm comes to your table, or a wine steward, or even a server, if the restaurant doesn't have a sommelier or a somm team, I want them to be friendly but professional, right? Like I want them to kind of be warm, inviting, but not like they're my best friend, right? Like I want them to be still a professional, someone that I can like ask questions, but is not gonna kind of like turn their nose when I'm asking just for like a glass of inexpensive wine. I think it's important too that they can read the room. Does the table or am I looking to have a conversation about wine? Me personally, always yes. Like very
Oh, yeah.
rarely am I like, and I just want this and like, leave me alone. But a lot of people, right? They just want wine in their glass. They don't necessarily need an explanation of the producer, why something tastes a certain way. Most people don't care. So you kind of have to read that situation.
100%.
One kind of like little thing that sticks out in my mind is Liv and I were having dinner at a very nice restaurant. It was a 2 Michelin star restaurant, and I'm always down to shoot the shit with the Somm. We were celebrating. I don't remember what we were celebrating, but we were celebrating something. And I was like, I'm looking for some champagne, and the guy was super nice, but like, it was, I think it was maybe our anniversary, right? And we're there to like hang out with one another, not necessarily to like shoot the shit with the Somm. And at a certain point, like he walked away, and Liv and I just kind of looked at each other, and we're like we didn't need to know every single grower champagne that you have on the list and everything like that, right? Like I kind of was like, hey, I'm good, I'm familiar with your list. I know a little bit about wine, like, and then he just went through and like read the whole list and
Mm.
explained all the producers. And I'm just like,
You wanted like three. That's what you
yeah,
wanted.
give me three recommendations. I don't need to know every single producer because I mean they had probably 20 champagnes on the list. Like it was a very extensive list.
Especially if you're going through the full thing
Yeah, yeah, and like we put a note like it's our anniversary, so it's like
preemptively. You should be
what
kind of ready.
what people want on their anniversary to like have someone sit there and like. I mean, he was probably at our table for like 15 minutes. Like it was unbelievable. And
Ugh, not reading the room.
not reading the room. And I've definitely been there, right? Like as a
Yeah.
sommelier, like I've definitely you know, stayed my welcome at a table, right? Like I might be interacting with a certain person at the table, but I can start to kind of tell that everyone else is like, all right, dude, you need to leave. And that's typically when I'll be like, okay, I need to find an exit. And some people, like some guests, just don't let you leave, right? They're like, we've got you. We want to know everything that you know about wine, and
And your
you might be,
history and your
yeah,
social
yeah, yeah,
security number
yeah.
and last four
Yeah,
digits.
I mean, I'm from the Midwest, so like that's not off the table. Like people,
Uh,
you know, they'll get to know you like no other, right?
yeah.
So
It's
I think,
definitely like a mixed bag when you are either the server or the guest at the table
mhm,
trying to interact and guide the service and breaking it apart
yeah,
or keeping it together.
yeah. I always used to have like a little like I forget it was like a little like hand gesture, or like I would like kind of like itch a certain part of my like chest if I needed someone to come and like bail me out. Like if it was they'd come and say, "Hey, I'm so sorry, you're needed in the kitchen," because again, you just get caught in these positions and you don't want to be rude. So it's easier to just have like someone else as your like scapegoat, like, "Hey, chef needs to see you in the kitchen." Like, "Oh, thank God," and like go to the back.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and I think besides reading the room, and I think a part of reading the room is just a sommelier who actually listens to what you want, right? Like I think we've both been in a position. I'm sure our listeners have been in a position where you know you'll say, "Hey, I really want a Sauvignon Blanc," and the Somm will be like, "Oh, we have this really great Falangina from blah blah blah," and you're like, "Well, I didn't really want that. I just wanted a Sauvignon Blanc," right? Like, some people want that. Some people want that recommendation. Some people just want a basic Sauvignon Blanc, right?
They just want what they're drinking.
Yeah, and as a sommelier, like not everyone wants to be educated. Not everyone wants like a full blown wine. They don't want to pass their level one sommelier after dining at their restaurant. Like, save some of that energy and some of that passion for people who actually,
Oh,
like, not to be blunt, but who actually care, right? Like, that was
yeah.
always some of my favorite tables were the tables that were like, I want your Pinot Grigio because it's the cheapest bottle. Cool. I'll go
Sounds
get that
good.
Pinot Grigio for you. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, for an extra $15 a bottle, you can get this that's significant. Like, I'm not going to waste my time, right? Because they already have their mindset. And at the end of the day, if they're paying for the wine, get them what they want.
Yeah, fair.
Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, I know best because I'm the fucking Somm. Like, no one cares, right? Like,
Right. You're not the one paying the bill. I
mm-mm.
am.
No. So, and I think, that kind of too, like, ties into like price, right? Like, they're not trying to necessarily like oversell you. Like, I've had customers or guests in the past, like, hey, my budget for wine tonight is $70, right? Okay, cool. Like, I'm not going to say, well, for 85 you can get this, or, I won't even go above. And in most cases, because I like was fortunate to, when Liv and I owned our restaurant, I was fortunate enough to, like, I knew my list. I'm the one who sourced all the bottles. Like, hey, I've got in my mind, maybe this bottle is $79 on my list. I'm going to cut you a deal tonight, right? Your budget's 70. I've got this great bottle. I just got it in. I sell it for 79. Tonight I'll get it to you for $70. I don't want to break the bank, but I think that you'll really enjoy it. I'm losing $9. Yeah, yeah, I get it. Beverage cost percentages, things like that. But the amount of relationships that I built and got people to come back and, hey, next time I'm in, I definitely want to pick your brain about what else you got. Like, you know, and then when they get a promotion, now my budget's $90 a bottle. Great. Actually tonight I've got this great bottle for 85. I know you said your budget's 90, but this is drinking like it tastes, it's tasting like it costs 150.
Yeah. When you're a som who does that, that is what like gets the guests. I think really intrigues if you show them a bottle under the budget that they wanted that feels or tastes 10 times better or is $100 above the budget. Man, does that sell your night? Does that make your night the best
Mm-hmm.
night it could possibly be? Because you feel like one, you're getting the best deal possible, and the som is taking care of you.
Yeah. And then, that word kind of travels too. Like, wow, like that sommelier really hooked it up, and, we had such a great time. We learned a little something, and I would kind of say, I'll cut you this deal if you let me talk about the wine for a few minutes. And then I've got them, I'm saving them money, and then I get to, spiel whatever it is and say, this is why I have it cost at, or priced at this, based on what you explained to me. You wanted a Cabernet. Well, I don't really have a Cabernet at that price point, but I have this, and, it's something similar. That's the point when you can kind of say, I'm cutting you a deal. Now let me sell you something that maybe you weren't in the market for. And then, I always had it like, if you don't like it, no worries. I'll take it home and drink it tonight, and we'll figure out something else for you. Right? Like, it's a no risk situation. You're not only, I'm saving you a couple bucks, but also if you don't like it, then you don't have to pay for it. And we'll get you, a Cabernet that I got on the list for $40 a bottle, like an entry level cab, and no harm, no foul. Yeah, bottom line, but
I
you know,
think taking that risk as a restaurant is definitely like being the most hospitable person possible and
mhm,
really taking care of the guests as a whole. Like, and refinding a use, even if it's not like being able to take that bottle home because you're not the owner or you're not the manager who can say that, but finding a purpose to resell it by the glass then and
exactly.
making your costs back on at least on the bottle, and then you don't lose anything or whatever the mixed bag is of that.
Yeah, or like what I used to do too is like I would use it as a teaching point too for the
Staff
staff, right?
education.
Like staff education, like next day at the pre-service, like I would air pump it, put it in the wine fridge. Next day at pre-service, all right, y'all, like let's really try and push this wine. If your guest wants to try it before they buy a bottle, we've got this open bottle. Like now I'm not only training my staff, but I'm also potentially educating guests and trying to upsell something that maybe like, hey, we just got this wine in, we just tasted it. Because everyone wants a story, right? I mean, wine without a story is just fermented grape juice. It's really it's alcoholic grape juice. So if you can build a story for your guests and for your team, it's going to go really far. And you can help create memories for people, which again, that's what wine's about. At least to me, it's about creating memories.
And that's what drives people to keep coming back is the memories that you create, because that feeling and that experience is really what sticks with people the most, even over the food and whatever else.
Yeah. And kind of like, when you finally get a bottle of wine selected and they pick something out for you, like the thing I think that drives me the most crazy is when people cut the foil at this very top little notch.
Oh, I am so peeved at that at my own restaurant, which is like,
Like I don't know if you can see it, but like
yeah.
people will cut the foil at this very top instead of cutting it at the bottom, and typically
or
like
taking the whole foil off. Oh, God.
Yeah. Or not even cutting the foil and just driving the corkscrew through the foil and then ripping it up, and you end up getting this like weird like torn fucking
Foil
octopus looking thing on the top of your bottle. So the reason why, like historically, why you cut the foil at the second kind of lip is because the capsules used to be like, it used to have lead in it. So when you'd pour the wine and when you kind of turn it up, right, if you cut on this top thing, the wine would drip down into the foil, or into the capsule, and then when you pour it again, it's basically coming out, and like the alcohol in the wine would strip some of the lead, and then you could like get lead poisoning. Now the capsules are made out of like, I don't know, aluminum or tinfoil or something like that. So you don't really have to worry about that, but it still drives me absolutely fucking crazy when I see people cut it from the top lip, because it just looks shitty. Or like for me, like if it's not a clean cut, that's when I'll go through and make a second cut, and I'll just cut down the side and I'll remove the foil as a whole, because I'd rather have no foil than like this weird janky looking foil. Like if it's not a clean cut, just get rid of it, right? Like now don't immediately like twist it and pop off the full foil. Like at least try and cut it,
because it looks the best that way.
Yeah. And then I'm a sucker for like a properly decanted wine too, if the wine needs to be decanted. Like, and I love seeing the sommelier with like the big candle and the decanter and like the little wine cradle, which I have one over there that's storing like all my cords and stuff, because I like, I used to like, for older bottles that I had in the cellar, I used to like go down with the cradle and like carefully pick it out and put it into the cradle and then bring it up and then, pour it from the cradle. Like, yeah, because it's a show and people want to, and especially like people want to see it. And especially if they're paying a lot of money for this wine, like,
yeah,
again,
hundreds, thousands, whatever it could be.
Mm-hmm. It's a story, and they can say, wow, I was at this restaurant and they like did a proper decant. Now, do I think every wine needs to be decanted? Absolutely not. But I think really young wines that need to kind of open up and untangle themselves could use like a quick, at that point, you're not really trying to remove sediment. You're more just like you do what you call splash decanting. And you're basically just trying to like pour it out as quickly, but not messy as possible, to get as much air into it as you can. Now with older bottles, that's when you use the candle. You're basically looking for the sediment to basically like, you basically shine the light where, kind of where like the wide part of the bottle meets the neck. And you're kind of just looking from up above to kind of see when the sediment starts to come down the bottom of the bottle. And that's when you kind of stop pouring because you don't want that sediment to go into the decanter because then it goes into your glass and then you're chewing on, sediment, which isn't going to hurt you. It's just not a pleasant thing to like have in the bottom of your glass.
Not super enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. No.
No.
And I think, kind of the last thing, like the last main point that I kind of want to touch on is how important glassware is. And same with decanters, right? Like it doesn't have to be a super fancy decanter. It could literally be like a water carafe or just like a basic decanter. It doesn't have to look like a snake or a fucking goose or they make some really crazy decanters. Literally just like a nice glass decanter. Like the one I have upstairs is it's technically a Magnum decanter, so you could put 2 bottles or a Magnum in it. But it's just a very it's got a really big base and a skinny neck, and like it's super simple. But same with your drinking glasses. They make all the difference to a point. I know some restaurants will have like 50 different types of wine glasses. I know that's an exaggeration, but they'll have a lot of different, this is a Bordeaux glass, this is a Burgundy glass, this is a Cabernet glass, this is a, Chardonnay glass, this is a Sauvignon Blanc glass. To me, that's very extra, right? And a lot of restaurateurs don't have the budget to buy that many glasses because stems are expensive. They can be expensive.
Well, they break easily,
mm-hmm.
and then you have to continuously have them replaced, so you have enough for service.
Yeah, and I mean, the nicer the glass, the more expensive it is, and the more breakable it is. So it's like you think the more money you spend, the less they break. No, it's actually the complete opposite. The more money you spend, the thinner the glass, the more they break. So it's just
thinner, they're lighter, they're more
mm-hmm.
beautiful, yet so much more fragile. Just setting it down wrong. Ding!
I know that's happened so many times. But I think the basics, like a thinnish glass. It doesn't need to be razor thin, but like my standard glass at home is a Riedel all-purpose. It's a restaurant glass. We had it Beautiful. At the restaurant, and they're 16-ounce wine glasses. They're great for white wine. I pour champagne in them too because I'm not a big flute guy.
Same.
Red wine, they're not overly big. They're relatively durable. I don't put them in the dishwasher, but you can. I just hand wash them. The other thing is making sure that they're clean. You don't see any smudges on them. There's not
lipstick
any
stains.
Lipstick. Yeah, you literally took the words out of my mouth. No lipstick stains from the previous lady who had bright red lipstick on and was kissing the glass. Free of smell, which is a big one.
Yeah.
Making sure when you're polishing them that the towels are clean and they don't smell because that will transfer into the glass. And then same thing with making sure they're big enough to be able to fit, a standard pour 4 or 5 ounces of wine where you can swirl it and it's not going to spill. It drives me nuts when people when we were in Vegas and we didn't buy an expensive bottle of wine that night, but they brought us out basically water cups.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, in the, because you're the one that asked her, well, can we get some wine glasses for this? and
they're
he's well, in The Godfather, they drink wine out of this. And we were all we don't really care what they do in The Godfather. We want wine glasses. And they were they brought them to us, but they were kind of shitty about it.
They were not the sweetest about it.
And
I looked over at the bar and I was just it's full of wine glasses too.
Yeah, because all they give you is water cups. And they were tiny water cups. They were probably they maybe could hold 4 ounces of water. They were small.
Yeah.
But I also hate when restaurants have those little, they're wine goblets. They're maybe 6 ounces and the glass is as thick as a pint glass.
Yes.
And it drives me nuts because it's why? And then they'll have nice bottles on their list. And it's like I refuse to spend money in those places on wine because it's like I'm not going to drink it out of your shitty, stupid wine goblet that's a 4 ounce
Oh,
glass that's super thick. Like,
it's
get
not as
some.
enjoyable.
These stems when we were buying them, they were like $5 a piece, which is cheap for nice glassware. I mean,
Yeah,
like Zaltos, which are known as like probably the nicest, but they're also the most expensive. Like wholesale Zaltos are still $50 a stem,
yeah, it's
and they're
ridiculous.
not durable at all. Like
Love
you
Zaltos though.
love Zaltos,
Love
but you look at a Zalto glass funny and it'll shatter. Like they're so fragile, and these are not as thin, they're not as nice, but these are $5. So like if someone breaks one, you're not like having to take out
it.
a second mortgage on your business.
Yeah.
So and I think
uh,
too, like a good restaurant should just have a couple of different glasses, right? I think they should have an all-purpose glass, whether it's a red or and a white, or having a red glass, like a really big for your Barolos, your Cabernets, things like that. A white wine glass, a champagne glass, not necessarily a flute glass, but I've seen some like really nice. Um, it's kind of in between a flute and like an all-purpose glass. They're kind of like a bigger champagne flute looking thing.
yeah,
A port slash sauternes glass, like something for dessert wine. And then anything really beyond that, you're kind of like probably at like a Michelin starred restaurant, and they have all those like Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, this, that, and it just gets to be too much. Like any normal restaurateur would never spend that much money on glassware.
yeah.
Um, you
I
know,
think your standard three is just about it.
yeah, yeah. Do they make the difference? Of course they do, but can you justify the cost in your establishment? Probably not.
I don't know. That is a good question.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think that brings us right into cocktails and mixology. Super important is, I think, starting off with the equipment, right? Having that proper service when you sit down at the bar, when you're in the bar area, when you're out in the restaurant. I think the the thing that draws you in the most when you're out and about. I don't know about you, Adam, but for me, is when you just hear that tink,
Hmm.
shaking happening right behind the bar, and you hear it's a lively, it's an enjoyment, and they are just mixing up drinks. You're just super excited to see what is happening, and
It's like
that.
it's the beverage equivalent of fajitas.
Oh yeah, I love that. That's a great comparison. Yes, you just like it gets you ringing. You're excited. Your blood starts pumping. You're like, ooh, I'm ready for my cocktail, kind of
Yep.
thing.
You hear
And
that you hear that martini shake, or you hear that shaker go, and you're like, "Fuck, who ordered fajitas?"
let's
And it's like I'm
go.
having whatever they're having, right?
Yeah, let's take two of those. Let's get them right here. Come on. Oh yes, and I would say that standard shaker that you would see out and about is the Boston shaker. That is that tin on glass standard. It could be tin on tin, of course, but tin on glass standard. It is the most easy, convenient, and simplistic way of making drinks in a shaker for every restaurant, and also the least expensive because you get a pint glass or a small middle tin and a big tin. Likelihood easy clean, easy, no, not very much
Mhm.
breakage unless it's the glass. It could break, not super hard because it's thicker in the glass. So no concerns there really overall. Plus, then measuring, it's really nice and easy to see when you're doing it in the glass. But
Are
the
you a tin
best
on glass kind of guy, or are you a tin on tin
tin
shaker?
on glass. A tin
Really?
on glass. Yeah, I like to see my drink as I'm filling it, as I'm making it, as it's combining together, and then pouring it into the metal tin with all the ice, and then seeing it shake, shake, shake all the way through. You
Interesting.
you
I'm,
tin on
I'm
tin
I'm a
guy?
tin on tin guy. I
Mm.
like to. Yeah, I'm a big like when I would bartend. I'm a big like fucking around behind the bar type of guy. So like I'm a big like spinning shakers and like you know fucking with the bar spoons and stuff like that. Because and for me, I was always like sketched out by the tin on glass because I'm like I get it. It's a tempered glass and like it's not going to break, but I was always like, but what if it does? And
Yes, it
you're like
does.
breaks while you're shaking, and then it's like glass
All
and liquor everywhere. Like I also
It's
just like the
possible.
yeah, and I like the way that the ice hitting the tin sound. I don't know. I'm a tin on tin guy, but
Hey,
it's interesting that you're a tin on glass.
to each their own, right?
To each their own.
After that is the cobbler shaker. I think that is probably your standard at-home shaker that you'd find most people have. That's
Mhm.
that standard tin with a top and a cover on it that has its automatic strainer, basically. Makes it
Yeah.
really easy for mixing cocktails and pouring out, but not as nice for, making a big old mix and being able to properly strain off the things that you're trying to take away or add to the cocktail.
And I
Uh,
will say the cobbler shaker too, like they typically don't seal very well.
that too. And they're
They
hard to open.
and they're hard to open. And then like a lot of the times when you're trying to open them, you kind of have to twist them, and then you get like the metal on metal like shriek. And again, like the seal is really important because if not, when you're shaking it, you're spraying whatever
Everybody.
you're shaking around. You know,
Got a
like
little cocktail shower.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're gonna clip that motion that
Uh,
you just did, and
oh yeah, that's gonna be perfect. You know how it goes.
that's gonna be on the TikTok reels.
It's all about the fun. And then the final shaker of it is the French or Parisian style shaker, which I myself don't really have never used and or really seen very much of this. Those are your big three. I'm sure there's other shakers out there of any kind, but those are the big ones known. That one kind of looks like a combination between a cobbler and a Boston shaker in style, which is really strange. Um, I guess it helps with the mixing portion, but honestly, the Parisian seems like a 10 on 10 to me. Basically, Boston shaker. That's really what it is.
Gotcha. I
Um,
don't think I've ever seen one of those.
yeah. So shaking, it's been around forever. Thought to become mixology style from 7000 BC all the way on to the 19th century, where the Boston Shaker and the 1884 when the cobbler shaker was made. But things happen and life changes. But the stylistic shakers themselves, they're standard now. They're not really going to go anywhere. So let's get used to that. Uh, Strainers super important for proper use of your cocktail service. There's the Hawthorne, the Julep, and then a fine mesh. That Hawthorne one is that one that fits nicely over the tin, has that swirl spring all the way
Hmm.
around it. Just fits nicely and pours off, so it takes off basically any shaken drinks and lets a little bit of the like crushed herbs or pieces that are in the drink kind of flow into the glass or the item that you want. The julep, which really meant for glass, put it in there to really just remove the ice from your glass as you're pouring off, and then the fine mesh to really just strain off everything that you possibly don't want to get in there: ice chips, herbs, uh, citrus, whatever
Hmm.
else is in there.
Yeah, and typically you'd use that fine mesh as like a double strain, right? Like you're already
Yeah,
using like a hawthorn or a julep, and you're kind of straining it out through the fine mesh. Also, like you can call it a tea strainer too, because it's like super super fine. Like you could literally like strain tea through it. Um, and that's you definitely like that's for like super silky cocktails. I'm a big ice chips in my shaken drinks kind of guy.
yeah.
I just like to like crunch on them, and like I like the texture, but I also understand fine mesh, and a lot of the times you use that for egg white cocktails too, so
Oh
you don't
yeah.
get any like the any
Eggshells or
egg bits.
anything you don't really want. You just want that foamy,
Hmm.
beautiful, velvety texture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, after that is stirring or stirred cocktails. Um, Stirred cocktails best for spirit forward liquor based cocktails or liquor only cocktails. So like Manhattan, Negroni, Boulevardier. Those cocktails best stirred, definitely. That's my way to go. Um, the whole point is to combine it without adding too much water. Minimum, you should stir 30 seconds so it's properly chilled. And then the real question is, or the real thing is, the classic martini, shaken or stirred, right? Mr. Bond always comes in there and goes, shaken, not stirred. Where truly it's supposed to be stirred, not shaken.
Hmm.
But I don't know about you.
Maybe a little character trait.
Yeah. I don't know. He might need to, work his way up. He's probably just on the job, trying to stay sharp. He needs a little bit more water in his drink. But truthfully, I'm a big stirred, not shaken.
No, I agree with you. If it's a stirred cocktail, it should be stirred. If it's a shaken cocktail, it should be shaken. Like the classics are one or the other, right? Like an old fashioned shaken is not like you would never do that, right? But I will say, I was reading something online about a shaken Negroni. So I
Yeah,
tried it.
light and frothy.
And I was like,
Mm,
I think I like it better than a stirred Negroni. It's
okay.
it's just a little bit less bitter, a little bit less harsh, and it's more. I will say it's texturally different. I mean, it's a different cocktail. It doesn't taste like a Negroni. It tastes like a Negroni flavored shaken cocktail. Like they're two completely different things, but I think I like the shaken Negroni better.
Yeah. Well,
It makes
Alex,
it a little more palatable.
yeah, I can see that for sure because Alex and I can't remember the name of the restaurant in Manhattan, but it was a Negroni based cocktail uh, place, and they just only did everything variation of the Negroni, and um, whatever Negroni that Alex always got had orange juice in it, fresh squeezed orange juice, and it was shaken so hard, so it had a nice thick head to it, and it was beautiful, like super super light, super refreshing. So I totally understand loving a shaken Negroni.
It's nice, but I think a shaken old fashioned is just psychotic.
I I would have to agree. I think you're going in the wrong direction, but hey, again, if that's what you want,
Yeah,
go for it. You're
don't
drinking it.
don't what do they say? Don't yuck people's yums.
Yeah, I like that. Don't yuck
Don't,
people's yums.
yeah, it's hard though.
Anyways, yeah. So now glassware, right? Glassware is so important. Truly, how many glassware do you need in a restaurant for cocktails? I think three, to be honest. I think you need a rocks glass or a double rocks glass. I think you need a coupe or martini style glass. And then you need some sort of like highball or hybrid of some sort that can fit your kind of tiki or style drinks.
Mm-hmm.
But the big ones, rocks or double, which is, for the Negroni, the Boulevardier, the shot glass, super actually, you know what? Scratch that. 4 glasses. You need a shot glass every place. Everybody loves a shot, Got to have a shot
A
here, a
lot of
shot there, beer in a shot kind of action. You know what I'm saying?
a lot of people don't have shot glasses though anymore. A lot of people just pour like they're like, oh, we don't do shots, and you're like, okay, so can I get a neat pour?
And they
Do
go,
they
okay.
pour you 2 ounces into a double fashioned glass and then you chug it out of that? Or shoot a like okay, so you just don't have shot glasses, like,
It's fine.
but you're gonna pour me a neat
Shot.
cocktail,
It's the same. It's the same.
but it's not as I guess it's not as easy to drink. Like
Yeah.
doing a shot out of a rocks glass is
You gotta
not.
just go your mouth a little wider. You gotta be ready,
Yeah.
Then there's the Collins or highball glass, same thing. Your gin and tonics, your vodka sodas. Those definitely are like a red solo cup action when you're out of the bar. That is like that kind of bar. You know what I'm saying? Totally perfect.
The Collins
And
glass is like the red solo cup of the bar,
that I
like
love
a
it.
high end cocktail bar,
Beautiful.
because you just put everything in a
That's
highball
what you put
glass.
everything is. Yep, everything, water, sodas, everything goes in that highball glass. I think tiki drinks are a good alternative for that. If you don't have that and you want the proper glassware, the hurricane glass, which is that, like, I guess tulip shaped glass.
Mm-hmm.
Super nice for blended drinks. You can fill it with a lot of fruit on top. It's a lot of fun. That's the drink I want. Tiki mugs, which are always fun.
Love a tiki mug.
You got a little fun designs. You got beautiful little flowers, birds, whatever else you want on it. It's just a blast. It definitely livens up the space for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now the martini glass. What do you think? Yes? No? Maybe so.
So I think for me, if I'm gonna do a martini, which I'm not a martini drinker, but like if I'm gonna have a martini glass, it would be like what you have there, a coupe glass.
My favorite.
I don't love martini glasses, like the typical like kind of V-shaped glass, because as a bartender or as a server, there's a couple like cons I have with them, right? Like, if you shake a martini and then you strain it into a martini glass, and if you hit that bottom of the glass, that stuff's splashing out of the glass, making a mess. Also, typically, what they'll say in restaurants is like a proper martini is filled to the brim, like almost where there's a pellicle, like or a not a pellicle. What's the
I know what you're talking about.
where basically
No rim.
yeah, basically like the water or the liquid inside basically like clings to the sides of the glass and like it's over full but it doesn't spill. It's not a pellicle because that's like what's on like you do that before you like smoke meat, so like the smoke sticks to it.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. I don't know what the word is called.
yeah. But anyway, and then when the server goes to take it, it spills, right? Because and then it's all over the place, it's all over the stem, it's all over the little base.
If you're going to serve it that way as a restaurant, you should serve a small shaker. Let the server bring it to the table, set the glass down, and pour. That's the
Yeah.
best way.
Yeah. I just don't love that. And I think, as a glass, it's just really hard to drink out of. Like, I just don't love it. I'd rather have a coupe glass if I'm going to do a martini style cocktail or like a Manhattan or something like that. I would rather have it in a coupe. What
I
about you,
agree.
Mason? You agree?
I agree. Plus, that martini glass is just like you've seen the videos out there. Like, if you get a martini glass that's only filled to this high and not to the rim, it is not full. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's a standard cocktail depending on the size of that glass. Because a lot of martini glasses probably start somewhere at 6 to 8 ounces, which a 6 to 8 ounce cocktail is already a lot.
Yeah.
And if it's a 6 or 8 ounce martini, it is literally most people have vodka only. That is not a martini.
Yeah, like
That is
6 ounces of shaken cold vodka.
you'll get fucked. You're on the table. That is your game over action
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
That is not what we're talking about.
And there's no ice in a martini too. So like if you think about like a highball glass, it's typically like 11 ounces, a typical highball glass. But you got to think there's a lot of ice in there, and then
Yeah,
there's a lot of something else: soda, ginger, tonic. There's
whatever it
only
is.
2 ounces of actual alcohol in there. Between 1.5 to 2 ounces, and the rest of it is ice and mixer. Whereas a martini is literally like a proper martini is gin or vodka, or typically gin and vermouth. So they're both alcohol. You don't need 6 to 8 ounces of just alcohol in one drink.
Well,
I mean,
well,
you don't. I do.
Yeah, but yes, and I think it's so funny. I've seen that, like, typical. You can, when you see a martini glass that's not only filled to here and this much is exactly the same as this much. Yeah, perception of space, y'all.
Mhm.
But it's okay. Uh, as long as you get it, you enjoy it, it's probably measured out properly if you're at the right kind of restaurant. Don't worry about being cheated because you're definitely not. They're doing their due diligence.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. My next favorite place is the margarita glass. A little salted rim action. I'm a salt and sugar rim, 3 limes kind of style. That's my.
Jesus, you're the worst,
I
Mason.
am the worst. I
You're
know
the
it.
fucking bartender's worst
They hate
nightmare.
me, but they love
Half
me
sugar,
because
half salt.
half sugar, half salt, 3 limes. Gotta do it. It's
Blended or
never.
on the rocks.
Uh, uh, I'm a on the rocks preferred, but I'll definitely take it blended or shaken up if they really want to put it in a margarita glass.
Yeah,
But
that's
uh,
psychotic. I'm
I'm
sorry,
I'm a
Mason.
weirdo. I'm a
Like
weirdo. I
a
know it
half
because
sugar, half salt rim.
yeah,
How
and
did I never know this?
I don't know. That's
We've
just
been best friends for how long? Doing this podcast for a year and a half together, and I didn't know that.
yeah. I like a little salty, little sweet kind of thing. That most places do it wrong, right? They do.
Well, yeah, because they don't care. I mean,
They don't care. They don't. They do literally half sugar and half salt. But what I want is them to mix the salt and the sugar and dip it. That's the best way to do it. That is the tastiest
I
way.
know you didn't just say that.
I did say that. I will say
Who?
it again.
Okay, but who?
Salt, sugar mix, dip. Let's go.
Okay, question for you.
Yes.
Have you ever, and Mason, if you come and visit me, I will do that for you. But
Okay.
have you ever been to a restaurant that has actually mixed the salt and sugar together? Because even me, who I bartended for a long time, like I know how to make drinks. I would have been shitty about it, but I would have done half the rim with sugar and half the rim with salt.
Which is what most places do.
How many people have actually mixed the two for you?
Very far and few in between. Like fine dining restaurants that I used to go out to in New York, are the only places that used to do the actual mix because it tastes a lot better. It
I
comes
don't
off
I
better.
don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all. And honestly, like it makes sense. And I didn't mean to call you a
No, no, you're
psycho,
good.
but like
I get it.
it's a
I'm that
psycho
guy.
move. Like you're
I
that
am
guy
that
at the
guy when we
restaurant.
go out.
Yeah,
When it
you're
comes
that
to a
guy at the
margarita.
restaurant where they're like, God damn it, Mason's here and he's gonna fucking order the half sugar, half salt rim.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna do it right or my proportions are gonna be wrong.
I don't say anything. I never say anything. I just let them give it to me the way they're
So
gonna give it to
okay,
me.
so what's Alex's? You and Alex go out for margaritas. What is
Yeah.
her rim of choice?
0 rim, 3 limes.
Zero rim.
0 rim. No salt, no sugar, no nothing. She doesn't want
Interesting.
nothing. Yep.
See, I'm a salt rim, and Liv is a tahine rim,
Ooh, tahini. All
and
right.
I don't like the tahine on my margaritas.
I'm not a big spicy margarita kind of guy, and
No,
so
but she loves a spicy margarita.
I'm sure the tahini rim max is perfectly. I get it.
But I would rather go unless it's a Mexican restaurant or a Latin restaurant. Like I'm not ordering a margarita out at a restaurant, right?
Probably
Like
not. Yeah.
yeah, because they're gonna have sour mix. Like it's gonna be bullshit. Like I'm just not even gonna go down that route.
Fair.
But if it's a Mexican restaurant, I will typically either do no rim or I'll do salt. Like I never do sugar rim, just because it's like sugar rim reminds me a lot of like lemon drops and like people who are like, I want a sugar rim or sidecars where they want like a fucking like designed sugar rim, which is a pain in the ass because you have to like get your lemon wheel or a lemon wedge and like make a design and then dip it in the sugar and like.
Yeah. Nope. I get it. Not for me. I get
I'll have
that.
to try
Salt,
that
sugar.
though. I'll have to
Salt and
try that
sugar.
though.
You'll get it half and half most of the time.
Is it
And the
equal
best
parts?
of the
Like
salt and sugar, they do
like
half, literally half on the glass, half sugar, half salt.
no, but your
Split
ideal salt sugar rim where you're
is
mixing the two
50
together.
50.
50
Salt.
50 salt sugar.
Yep. But when they normally give it to you on the glass, it's normally half of it actually salt, half of it actually
Right.
sugar. The best sip is that perfect in between where they
Right.
just mixed, and then you take that lick and sip. It's beautiful. Anyways,
I don't know how to feel.
that's okay.
But I want to try it. I want to try it.
You should try it. It's delicious. But we'll move on to the final cocktail vessel, which is the metal mug, or most may know it as a mule mug, and that is definitely, or a mint julep mug, I guess, whatever you want to call it. If you're in Kentucky, that's probably what you would know it most by. Everywhere else, probably mules. But yeah, that is all of the cocktail service needs equipment wise that you would need to create a perfect service.
Yeah. I
Fair.
mean, I think, and now, those who've listened to this podcast, you have no excuse for having shitty beverage service. Like, absolutely none. You listen
Right.
to this podcast, we gave you the essential tools. We didn't go too deep into anything except for the salt sugar rim, you know.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
So, like, there's really there are really, like, to me, basic things that make a huge difference in how your guest experiences, how you know your bartenders will thank you because you're doing things the right way. Your somms will appreciate the clean, spot-free, smell-free glassware. Like, again, it seems small, but it's really hard for most people to execute. So,
Yeah.
I think it's
Service with a smile.
service with a smile, friendly but professional.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Assemblage, friendly but professional. As the
Uh,
co-hosts are calling each other psychos on air.
hey, I'm a salt and sugar kind of guy, and you're just a sour kind of guy, a
Yeah,
salty kind of guy.
I am salty and I'm sour a lot of the time.
uh,
So yeah, that's actually fair.
right, we're good. We're good. We have a nice mix.
Mason, do you want to get us into the question of the day, and we'll wrap this bad boy up?
Yeah. So, to our listeners and Adam, to answer this question first, what are your equipments of choice and why?
So for me, tin on tin shaker.
All right.
And then I gotta go a really nice mixing glass, like a really nice, like, thick walled mixing glass.
Okay.
I've got one that's like a botanist gin bottle that they basically turned into a mixing glass, which is pretty nice.
That's pretty cool.
And then I have to go with an all-purpose wine glass, like the Riedel 16-ounce wine glass. And then
AP,
I've got to
baby.
go, huh?
AP, baby.
AP baby. And then I've got to go with a rocks glass or a double old fashioned glass because you can put anything into it, right? Like,
Totally.
it's a very
Shot,
universal glass. Yep.
cocktail,
Shot.
shot.
Shot. Yeah. But yeah, those are kind of my essentials, and a good bar spoon too. A good bar spoon's important. Mine's got a little skeleton on top, which is nice.
That's fun.
Yeah. But what
Little
about you,
trinket.
Mason? What are your equipments of choice and why?
Yeah, Boston Shaker glass on tin. That is my always go to shaker style. We'll never change that up. Lots of fun. Double cocktail glass, rocks glass is my way to go. I pour everything and everything. I'm that Boulevardier mostly
Hmm.
drinking, otherwise on the rock. So it's the perfect glass for that. If I'm sticking with, you gotta have the Hawthorne strainer for my cocktails. Like that's
Yep.
my thing. You just
Hmm.
tink, and it feels so perfect. And then if we're going into the wine, AP baby, that's what it's all about. I'll drink red, I'll drink white, I'll drink champagne, everything out of that single white wine glass. It's perfect for everything.
And
Sniffing, tasting, whatever it is.
yeah, and I will say you gotta have a strainer because I the dirty dump is what we used to call it. Like when you basically shake it and then just immediately dump the whole thing into the glass.
There are a couple of cocktails that is for it, but
Yeah,
not very many.
but most of them, like, because it's all about dilution, right? Like, you're trying to, like, have fresh ice, like, or if it's a big cube situation, right? You're shaking and then you're straining the already cold cocktail onto the big cube. You're basically, that big cube is just being used for keeping the drink cold, and it'll slowly dilute. Whereas if you were doing what I just call the dirty dump, you're basically shaking and then just pouring all the remnants into a glass, ice, chips, sort of melted ice, the cocktail.
The
It
herbs
it,
and the spices
it,
and
it
whatever else
like
is in there.
it will be
Takes away.
diluted a lot faster. It just looks kind of shitty. like don't do it unless it's like that's what's called for in the cocktail. Like strain it over clean ice. It doesn't even have to be a big cube, just like fresh ice that hasn't already been shaken and kind of like beaten up in the tins.
Fair. Fair. I
Yeah, I
like it.
mean, even at home, like I don't dirty dunk. Come on, which sounds
Uh,
disgusting, but like that's kind of what it's called in the industry. Like it's just kind of like you're just kind of a dirty bartender, like kind of a piece of shit. But
oh, I love it. Oh gosh.
well, Mason, you got any else? Any other service notes before we wrap this episode 59 up?
Only service note for you out there listening to this podcast is don't forget to smile.
Don't forget to smile. Don't, and you know what? You just missed something.
Mm.
Don't forget to smash that motherfucking subscribe button.
Oh, yes, what I'm talking about.
Yeah, make sure you go check out the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you might stream, and make sure you give us a review on Spotify because it really helps us grow the podcast. I will say the golf merch line is being dropped this year. Working on some final logo creations. So there's probably gonna be a bucket hat, a golf hat, a polo, a quarter zip, maybe some shorts. I don't know. All that stuff will be eventually on www.assemblagebevco.com/golf. Maybe. I don't know. That page isn't even created yet, so we'll see. But yeah, until next time, I'm Adam,
I'm Mason,
and keep
and
on
keep on
blending.
blending.
We love you guys.
Peace.
Peace.